I think we can probably both agree. Well, I guess I'll find out. I would argue this next movie is probably better. And of course, we are talking about The Mist from 2007. The story is decently simple. A man, played by Thomas Jane, goes to a small supermarket with his son and a neighbor. And once they're at the supermarket, this mist sort of encloses the town they live in and the supermarket, and there seems to be some type of dangerous creatures in the mist, with either tentacles or creatures that fly, and there are people who in the supermarket may not believe these exist, and much to their displeasure, they find out they may be mistaken. And the movie's sort of two things going on. The guy, Thomas Jane, has to deal with these monsters on the outside, but there's also some dangerous things happening inside the supermarket when an extraordinarily religious woman starts talking about the end of times, and the more she talks, the more people listen, and it leads to, in my opinion, some of the most terrifying parts of the movie. But before I get too deep into this one, what did you think about this one? I know you've seen it quite a few times.
Yeah, I originally saw it at the theaters. Yeah, I think it's a decent movie. I mean, this is based on a Stephen King novel, isn't it?
Technically, it's a short story, but yes.
Short story? Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, that goes to show how much Stephen King I read, or how much I read in general, which is nothing at all. I like the big, what would you call it, monster? Like, there's this huge thing out there.
Yeah, I would use a generic term monster, but I'm sure this creature might be a more official term.
Yeah, or this massive creature, whatever it is out there. I enjoyed knowing that thing's out there, but all the other... Well, they had like all these other type of creatures or bugs or big bugs. Or, I don't know what they were, but I didn't really care for any of the other things that were potentially dangerous. Like, they didn't really do much for me.
Not even the spiders?
Maybe they're okay. Well, yeah, I mean, I hadn't seen this one recently, so I'm probably missing a few details, but I know the huge creature outside is the thing that I was always thinking about during the movie. Like, that was the one concern on my mind. Not all these other things, just, yeah. I mean, it was okay, all the other things happening in the store, and like you're saying, that religious lady, when she kind of starts convincing people to start this, I guess, like a cult. That part of the movie is also quite interesting and a little scary for the other people who still remain somewhat grounded in reality and didn't jump aboard the whole religious train. I mean, the movie, it really made you root for those main people who eventually do try and, break out of the store and make a run for it, rather than all these idiots, just sitting around praying or doing whatever they're doing. And I remember I'd seen Thomas Jane in, I think it was The Punisher a couple years prior. I know you're not big on action, but that was a movie that I thought was quite decent, and so I kind of enjoyed just seeing him in certain movies around that time. I wouldn't say I was a huge Thomas Jane fan, but I enjoyed, just seeing him on the screen. So I found that it really made you want to root for these guys to kind of make it out alive. And as we all know, it's got a pretty devastating ending, so big kick to the nuts.
I want to save the ending for just a little bit. I want to sort of piggyback off what you just said. I've also seen Thomas Jane in The Punisher. It's a decent movie, although, to be honest, I actually always liked Punisher War Journal, or War Zone, more, which is a controversial opinion, but I thought it was about the Punisher movie. The cast in this movie, I think, is fantastic. If you've seen, a few well-known Stephen King related movies, Shawshank Redemption, Storm of the Century, which is one of my favorite Stephen King related miniseries, you'll recognize a lot of these faces. For instance, Jeffrey DeMann, who was also in the 1988 The Blob, which we discussed, like 6-7 shows back. There's an actor named Toby Jones in this movie who plays a sort of a geeky, meek-seeming manager but he is probably one of the most badass characters in the movie. There's just a bunch of characters. The religious woman, well, I forget what the actress's name is, but she did a fantastic job. Like every time she was on screen, at least I'm sure she had some people who defended her, but I just hated her. She was such a character who is just so easy to hate. So it's just there's a lot of great cast members here, and no, I think the story is really well done, and I actually like most of these creatures. I mean, I'm not like the fly things. I did it, I was like terrified of them, but I thought, if these creatures came from I think another dimension is the common thought. And on just a quick side note, I've not actually read the Stephen King story this is based off of. I've only seen the movie, so I don't know if the story goes into much detail about this. But I thought the creatures were okay. If they came from like another dimension, it makes you wonder just how horrible that dimension would be. Well, I guess they find out. So I don't know. I think the cast really works, and the story is good, and the cast really brings the story together. So I mean, pretty much on our side, I think the movie generally works, including the ending, which is a fantastic ending, and people who hate the ending just don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, I mean that's in terms of devastating endings. It's definitely one of the ones that's right up there. And I'm glad that they didn't have like test screenings where people made them change it and all that kind of stuff. I enjoy the non-conventional type endings to movies, which usually involve everything working out.
Yeah, I know that when this came out, no, I unfortunately did not see this one in theaters, but I do know the ending got very mixed reaction. I mean, some people really liked it, and like I said, I really like the ending. I thought it was realistic. I didn't see, but the problem, I know it's it's unfortunate, but it makes sense in the context of the story. But I know that other people were just horrified by it, and I actually have a friend on another horror website who thinks the movie's almost perfect aside from the ending, which ruins it, which is a very interesting point of view in my opinion.
So he loves the movie but hates the ending.
Yes.
What a weirdo.
I know, that's how I feel. And luckily I'm not alone on that.
I know there's some versions out there where they give you the option of watching this in black and white. I haven't done that. Have you happened to try that?
I have not. I read about that, like one of the DVD releases has like you can watch in black and white, and when I read that, I'm like, that'd be an interesting idea. I can see why for a major movie like this they didn't go that route, for the release, because that would have turned quite a few people off, unfortunately. I've not seen it like that, but I think it would be interesting. It probably, I don't know, in some ways I actually think it might make the movie even more sort of a claustrophobic type thing. So that might be worth a try in the next 50 years.
As you know, I'm not such a huge fan of cinema back in the black and white days, but I'm thinking maybe for this, like, because some of the CGI in the movie, I mean, overall it's pretty decent, but sometimes there's some moments where it just kind of sticks out a little bit, like, and perhaps if they took all the color out of it, and maybe that would make a difference in terms of making that CGI look even a little bit more realistic.
Yeah, I'll say I'm going to give this movie a pretty high score, so spoilers, but the one small thing I had an issue with was some of the CGI seemed a bit spotty at times, and it wasn't like a big deal. It didn't, at least for me, it didn't take me out of the movie, but it was noticeable a few times, so it was somewhat disappointing. Out of interest, aside from Thomas Jane, do you have a favorite character in this movie? Or is it pretty much?
No,
Thomas
not
Jane.
really. I mean, I don't have any like Thomas Jane fetish, like your John Goodman fetish, but
yes, he is an attractive man.
Yeah, I just don't mind seeing him on the screen after having seen him in The Punisher, like I said, which I fairly enjoyed. Yeah, I mean his neighbor, the one black guy, kind of annoyed me just for the simple fact that he was so dismissive or wouldn't believe him, and I don't know, something
actually,
about him made me go, "You idiot."
Yeah, I thought that character's really interesting. The actor, it's sort of a French name. I'm going to butcher the pronunciation, so I apologize beforehand. But it's like Andre Brajo, something like that. He's not that well known, but he's been in a few decent movies. He was actually in a movie from 2000 titled Frequency, which I thought was a pretty fantastic movie. But his character was pretty interesting. When I first saw this movie many years back, I thought he was going to be one of the main characters, along with Thomas Jane. But 25 minutes into the movie, Thomas Jane and he are on completely different sides of this, and that's a bridge that never gets fixed. So I actually thought it was very interesting and somewhat unconventional. I thought the movie had a lot of good things going for it. I really think the cast is fantastic. There's so many great cast members. Especially Jeffrey DeMann and Toby Jones. And Thomas Jane is good too, but Toby Jones' character here was just really enjoyable. The story, of course, it's written by Stephen King. The story is pretty good, and from my understanding, they didn't really change that many things from the short story to the movie. So that's nice. And of course, my opinion, one of the most interesting things about the movie is sort of the almost dual antagonists. That's not just the monsters outside that they have to deal with, but it's the monsters inside in the form of fundamentalist Christian religion, which was terrifying because at least in my country, the USA, it's not uncommon to hear that type of stuff. And there's quite a few people in power in this country who believe along the same lines. So it's not like it's entirely unrealistic that this type of thing could happen if a situation like this ever arose. So I don't know, I thought it was a very interesting movie. I like the sort of a character study almost of some of this stuff. So I think it had a lot of things going for it, and I really enjoyed it. Aside from some CGI issues, I think the movie's pretty fantastic. So I'd give this a 9 out of 10.
Yeah, well, I give it a 7. And I think it's a pretty decent movie. I enjoyed the big creature outside. We don't get to see a whole lot of that, but I guess that helps to build up the suspense for when people actually do get caught outside. And those I thought those were the scariest moments of the film to me. Outside of maybe the religious lady almost convincing people to start hurting others in there
sacrificing people. That's a fantastic.
Yeah. So I mean, there's parts of the movie that I enjoy, and then there's parts where I could take it or leave it. Like I said, some of the bug type characters didn't necessarily care for those, and part of that's probably because of the CGI. But obviously, it's got a really good ending, an ending that really sticks with you for pretty much forever, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's a pretty decent movie. One that I don't mind watching every now and then. Yeah, I just don't love the movie.